Hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, a doll's Adirondack chair. Well, on this week's show, I thought it would be fun to make an Adirondack chair, possibly sized for maybe a medium-sized teddy bear or that sort of thing. So that's what we're going to work on today. It all starts off with some layout at the bench. Well, the first thing that we're going to lay out will be the seat bottom support and the lower backrest support. It's a fairly simple piece, and we're going to be using a small piece of 1/4 inch MDF to make a template. It's 7 1/4 inches wide. So the first thing that we need to do is 1 1/8 of an inch up from the bottom. We're going to place a radius of 6 1/2 inches. Another 5 7/8 inch radius, and a radius of 5 7/16. And now measuring from the edge of your board into your middle radius, that's your 5 7/8 radius, we're going to draw a line from our axis point, our pivot, where it intersects with that arc, and we'll draw a straight line here. And we'll do the exact same thing on the other side. So 1 1/16 of an inch in, and then draw your connecting line between that point and your pivot point of your compass. And that, my friends, is your template for your lower seat support and backrest support. So this will be an interior cut. We'll need to cut this section here out and this arch. So I'm going to take it over to the scroll saw, we'll cut that out, and then I'll see you when I get that done. And that would be our lower template made. So I have another piece of 1/4 inch MDF here, and all I'm going to do is 9/16 in from the edge here. I'm going to line it up and draw myself a radius of 5 9/16. Now you may notice that I've drawn a line across the top here. That is at 1 1/4 inches from the bottom, and 2 inches in along that line, we're going to set our compass at that point and draw another radius just between the line at 1 1/4 inches. And then we can take this to the scroll saw and cut this one out. And there we have that template. So there is one more template to make for the seat supports, and I have some of my original stock offcut here from our first template that we made, and all we're going to do is line up the edges here. I'm going to trace around the outer perimeter. I am going to mark 1/2 inch in from either side, and then the other side. And we will now cut out this middle section. So it will be the same profile as that lower support, but it will be 1 inch shorter, 1/2 inch off of either edge. And there we have our final template. So it's now a good idea to write on your templates what size stock you need to cut them from and how many. So I have here on this one, cut 1 from 3/4 stock. This one right here, cut 1 from 3/8 inch stock, and this one here will be the same. Cut 1 from, and this will be 3/8 of an inch thick stock as well. And that is, at this point, exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut these 3 out from the appropriate size stock, 3/8, 3/8, and 3/4. I'm using cherry for this project, so I'm going to trace these out onto the thickness of cherry that I need. We're going to head over to the scroll saw, cut each of these ones out, and then once we get that done, I'll see you at the bench. Well, for the time being, these two lower pieces can be put aside, and we're going to turn our attention to the 3/4 inch thick upper support for our slats. Now, I've drawn towards the front edge. You can see here 3/8 of an inch down, I've drawn a wedge here, and this is where our armrests are going to go, but we need to cut a 15-degree angle there. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to clamp this in place. I'm going to take my marking knife and just score it along our line. And then we're going to cut roughly down to the 15-degree mark. And now, using a sharp 3/4 inch chisel, we're just going to chisel away this material here to reveal our 15-degree angle. Well, it's now time to make the main angled legs for our Adirondack chair. And what we need to do is, I'm going to make the template here. It's 13/16 wide and 10 9/16 long. And what I've done is, on one corner here, I've measured in 1 13/16, and then up from the bottom, I've measured up 5/16. And we are going to draw a line between those 2 points. And that will be the angled section of our chair. So I'm going to cut this out on the scroll saw. That will be our template. And then I'm going to make 2 of them out of 1/2 inch thick stock. And now that you have those 2 main legs shaped, you can cut yourself 2 front legs. These will be the upright legs, and they are 1/2 inch thick, 3/4 inch wide, and 6 inches long. Well, there's a few more pieces that we need before we can start any sort of assembly, and that will be, for starters, a front seat spacer. You need one of these, 3/8 of an inch thick, 6 1/4 inches long, and 3/4 of an inch wide. Now, all of these next 7 pieces are all identical, and what they are is the slats that will be for our seat. You're going to need 7 of them, and they're going to be just like our spacer, 3/4 of an inch wide. They're going to be 3/8 of an inch thick, and they're going to be 7 1/4 inches long. So now that you have those slats cut, you have your lower backrest support, you have your rear seat spacer, you have your 2 legs cut, you have your upright legs cut, and you have your upper backrest support. We can now start some kind of assembly, but first give all of these pieces a thorough sanding. Well, the first part of our assembly starts with both our rear seat or leg spacer as well as our upright back support, the lower section. Those were the pieces we first cut. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to line these up. They have to be glued together. So I'm going to line them up using some of our 1/2 inch legs as a spacer so that we get it spaced, centered correctly. We're going to apply some glue and then glue these 2 pieces together. Then we can get rid of these spacers. You may notice this is a little uneven here. That's not a big deal, because once this is dry, we're going to take it over to the belt sander and level all of this out. Well, we're now going to start part of the assembly. And what I have is I have our 2 long legs, the ones with our little taper at the end. That taper goes down. So we're going to place that down, and our spacer here, our front seat spacer, which was our 6 inch long, or 6 1/4 rather long piece, we're going to sit this in the front. We're going to sit our back spacer assembly that we just finished sanding here, And we're going to glue in our front spacer. Once we get the front spacer glued and clamped in place, we're just going to check it for square and make sure that everything is still looking right. And now clean up your squeeze out and let that set up. Well, our next step is to get 2 of our seat slats. That's our 7 1/4 inch pieces. One of them will get glued directly to the front, just like this, and the other one will get glued on top of it so that it is level at the front end. So we can glue these 2 pieces in place and let them set up to dry. Well, now that those slats are dried up, what we can do is glue the rest of our slats in. I'm going to keep this clamp on here just to help me keep everything lined up with this back spacer. And we're going to use a 1/16 inch setup block. And I'm going to take each one of our 7 slats and glue it in place with a 1/16 of an inch gap. So there's the first one in place. I'll clean up the squeeze out. I don't think we need a video of me gluing in every single slat. It's the exact same process. A little bit of glue, put your 1/16 spacer in place, and then clean up your squeeze out. So glue the other 5 in, and then we can move on from there. And once you have all your slats in place using the same 1/16 inch spacer, we're going to glue in our back, both spacer and our backrest support. And now we can let this assembly dry up and move on to making the upright back support slats for the back of the chair. Well, here we have what will be our backrest seat template, and it is a piece of 1/4 inch MDF, 12 inches long and 1 9/16 wide. What I want to do is at one end, just down at the bottom, we're going to place a mark at 13/32 of an inch. One on that side, and then turn it around and we'll come in 13/32 again and place a mark right there. Now what that should leave in the middle here is a 3/4 inch wide strip. And that's exactly what we have, 3/4 of an inch. So I am going to join from this line here at 13/32 right up to the corner here, and from this line right up to the corner up here. And that will be our slat template. We'll cut it out on the scroll saw as best we can, and then all we need to do is trace our pattern onto 3/8 thick inch pieces of cherry that are 12 inches long by 1 9/16 and cut them out on the scroll saw. Well, we have all of our backrest slats cut. There's 7 of them in all. And at this point now, we have unclamped our seat assembly. I've given it a good sanding, and I'm just going to put a 1/8 round over just on the front edge of this board here. Well, now I've made an assembly template. And what this does is it aligns our front legs for us so that we can glue it on without having to mess around and trying to get the angles right. It is 9 inches long. There is a 1/4 inch rise on this side and a 2 11/16 inch rise on this side, and I've joined the 2 lines. Cut it out, and all we're going to do is we're going to line this up with our chair right at the end of the back leg, right at the back end of it, just like that. We're going to line it up, clamp it in place, and once we get it clamped in place, we will use this front edge to glue one of our legs in place. We'll let that set up, get it clamped in place, and then we'll repeat the process on the other side. Well, we now want to make the template for the arms of the chair. I have a piece of 1/4" MDF here. It is 7 11/16 of an inch long and 1 3/16 of an inch wide. So the first thing I'm going to do is on one end, I'm going to place a line right across at 3/4 of an inch. Coming in from that same side, we're going to place a line on that mark at 2 inches in. And then coming back from the other side, we're going to place a mark at the top edge at 4 inches in. We will also use our circle template and round off the end of our template. Well, the last thing to do here now is we need to get a gradual curve from this mark at 2 inches up to our mark at 4 inches. And for that, we'll just use some French curves. There we go. So I'm going to take this over to the scroll saw. I'm going to cut it out, and we need to make 2 of these out of 3/8 of an inch thick stock. So with both the arms of our chair cut, we're going to take our upper backrest support. We're going to lay each arm into that bevel that we cut earlier. We're going to glue it in so that the arms are flush with the back of our bracket, and we'll clamp that together and we'll let it set up. Well, it's now time to mount our arm and backrest assembly to our chair. So let me just explain what I've done here. I have some scraps of 1/4" MDF that are cut to 6 inches long, the same length as our chair legs, and I have a square attached to one of our backrest slats so that it is sitting upright in our slot square to our seat. And all I'm going to do is take our arm assembly, center it in place, bring it up until it touches onto that upright that we've sat temporarily in there. And once we're happy with our configuration and how everything lines up, making sure that we're lined up at the back and evenly spaced on either side, we're going to glue it in place here at the arms, clamp it down, and allow it to dry. And the last pieces to complete the assembly will be these little braces that will be centered on our uprights just under our arms. And I'll give you a close-up of it here so you'll know what it looks like. I just free-handed this. It's 1.5 inches long, 1/2 inch wide, and it's cut from 1/2 inch stock. And you'll need 2 of them, and they'll just get mounted underneath your arms for extra support. Well, while things are drying up here, we can start working on our seat back. So we have all of our pieces, and they're just going to sit into that slot that we cut there earlier. Now, you may have to do some finagling and sanding. I had to sand down some of mine. Depending on the accuracy of your cuts, etc., etc., you might have to do a little bit of adjustment. And once you do, or once you finish your adjustment, they should all fit tightly in the bottom of the slot down here at your seat. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to take a piece of masking tape, and we are going to place it right across here because we want to cut our arc for the top of our seat. And then we can carefully take this out and lay it on the bench. And now, just using my beam compass, I'm going to place a radius at the top of all of our backrest slats. For the record, this is approximately an 11.5 inch radius. And now, leaving everything taped together, we're going to take it over to the scroll saw and cut that radius out. And now with that radius cut, we can install these slats in our chair. So there is no magic formula here to get these things installed. We're just going to remove our masking tape. Make sure you keep them in the same order that they came out in. And You may need to do a little bit of finagling with the pieces to get them to fit, again, depending on, you know, the accuracy of the cuts and all of that stuff. But you're basically going to play around with it until you get all of these slats installed, and we will glue it. Once you're happy with the fit, we will glue it to our backrest support. And then at that point, your little chair is finished. And there you have it. An Adirondack chair for your dolls or your child's teddy bear or, well, whatever you like. Guys, this project is a load of fun. It definitely has its challenges with the assembly and carving out or chiseling out that 15-degree angle on the upper back support. Not to mention, too, that, you know, there's a big mix of processes here between using the table saw, using the sander, the scroll saw, some custom fitting with those back pieces to get them to fit correctly. All in all, it's an all-around great project and a great skill builder. It really doesn't take that much stock. Truth be told, you can switch this around and make it smaller or bigger for whatever you want. If you have smaller dolls, reduce the sizes, play around with it and have some fun. What you can do, of course, to make it even simpler is just use the measurements that I've given you here today to make the templates, photocopy them. Once you get the photocopies, you can reduce or enlarge however you want to suit the doll or the toy that you need. If you want to make really tiny ones for a dollhouse, then go ahead. What a great way to use up scrap, and what a great way to put a smile on a young one's face when you give them the chair that you made for them. Now, some would say this might be for my granddaughter, but no, in fact, this is for my wife, who has been asking for a very long time for a chair for her favorite stuffed animal that she has, which would be her favorite character, Grover. So, of course, now Grover has his own little chair and he can be comfy and sit there, and my wife is happy. And in the words of Grover, he now has a cute little cherry chair. Please don't unsubscribe. Guys, this has been a lot of fun this week. Something very different, and you know what? Honestly, an enjoyable project. I'm going to add a finish to this one. I'm probably going to go with something like a Danish oil and then maybe some spray varnish to give it a little bit of a sheen. I'm not sure if I'm going to go high gloss or a satin. We'll figure that out as I go along. But you choose the finish that you want for your project. Guys, if you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't unsubscribe. Click the bell so that you don't miss the notifications of future episodes of the show. I hope you've enjoyed today's program. I hope you've enjoyed the project. I hope you're going to try this for yourself. And more importantly, guys, I honestly hope you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another woodworking video. Okay. That cherry chair joke, that was my wife's. I should have never used it. Okay, it was funny.